I'm good.
All right. All right, guys, give me a thumbs up out there if you can hear and see us. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear and see us, and we will get this conversation going. Um, I must admit, appreciate your help today. My screen looks rather debonair. Look at that.
It
All right.
does.
Yeah, looks clean.
Whoever helped you with that camera setup, they did a very good job.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they stole something from me though over here. A few things I'm trying to find that I can't. All
That comes
righty.
with the territory.
If you are out there, well, let me greetings everyone. We are going to get this started, but I have to make sure that you can hear and see and all those good things before I do. So we can't seem to get the thumbs up, but what I'm going to do is go to the channel myself just to check it out. Okay, it says we are live. Yep, we are good. Okay, hear you loud and clear. Thanks, Clayton. Appreciate it. Okay, now everything's rolling in. Welcome everyone over to the Real NOC YouTube channel. As promised, we are going to start having conversations and different things over here at the channel to kind of get this YouTube thing cracking. We've done pretty good on other platforms, but now it's time to get the YouTube cracking. So the studio is 98.7% complete. I only got a couple of small things to do. One of them we were kind of testing tonight, and that is live services. So we should have fun with that. And forgive me in advance because I will be fumbling with things. I don't do this platform a lot. Normally, I'm a guest on the other end of most interviews outside of Stogies and Straps. So have to work the technology at the same time while engaging with you and obviously having a conversation with the individual that's going to be on with us tonight. So great. So now we're gonna get to having fun. So tonight we are going to have a conversation about decentralization, and I'll be totally honest with you. This was not my idea. This was Mr. Perkins' idea, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself in a second. And about decentralizations and why Americans are afraid of it. So he brought this up a few hours ago, and I said, "Great, let's have a chat about it." And he agreed, and here we are. So that's exactly what we're going to do is have a conversation about that. And I think we've given people enough time to get in here now. And I do apologize once again for only announcing this about an hour ago, but things are moving relatively fast. And we still had to get parts of the studio set up to make sure that I could do it. But it is good to go now. So, sir, before we get into the conversation, for those of you who might not know who you are, would you mind giving a short introduction of yourself?
My name is Devin, also known on most platforms as Trenchwork Chronicles. Actually, now on Twitter, it's Burned It All Down 77. I had to change that for, obvious reasons. I got kicked off, but whatever. But yeah, podcast host and freedom activist. And main focus is working with the next generation. So that's all that I do. And this conversation honestly was just birthed from making observations and watching society do what society does. But yeah, just something I noticed and wanted to bring up, and you wanted to bring it on the show, so I said, let's do it.
All right. Well, appreciate you coming up with that idea, and I'm going to touch on it for a second. But first, let me go ahead and say thank you to some individuals that are in here. G-Webs, appreciate you. Clayton, Dan, what is up? Jay, how are you, good sir? G-Webs, thanks for confirming the audio. Thanks, Clayton. Let's see. Dan is once again cracking jokes. Dan is one of those guys, no matter where you're at or how serious you get, he is going to make you laugh. He just always has something slick to say, but he's good to have around. Lawrence, how are you, man? Yeah, long time no see, man. Still doing my preaching, man. Yeah, I hope everything is well with you up in Virginia. So, all right. We are going to go ahead and get this thing started. These conversations, I think that sometimes, and obviously we're on YouTube Live, so I'm not going to handle the wall decorated thing right there, somewhere up in there. All right, I'm not going to handle it, but I think a lot of times when it comes to having more elevated conversations, we are a victim of a pigeonholing, and we do it to other people. And what happens with that is because, say, you are, pro the thing behind me, people automatically pigeonhole you and say, well, that's all you can discuss, talk about, or interact with, right? You don't extend beyond those parameters that society or even an individual has set for you. And I know what I've been preaching for a long time is that this is great, but this protects our opportunity to have those more elevated and advanced conversations. So we have to be able to have those. And I think in the gun community, we've been a little fearful of expanding outside of those conversations unless they are attached with a left versus right discussion, to where we can once again pigeonhole people because of politics and then go at them or attack them or, be comfortable in our echo chamber. So this conversation is going to be a little bit different. I plan on running at least another 53 minutes with the conversation, so we can kind of get into it. Obviously, decentralization is something we can discuss forever, but we'll try to get it summed up. So I guess I'll start off with this, man. I got a couple of points that I want to make out of a book that I have here that is not about decentralization, but I think it brings up some really good points. But please, tell us, how you personally define decentralization, and then, what's the issue? What do you want to discuss?
I mean, decentralization is just getting away from everyone being centralized and focused on one thing or being dependent on one thing. And I say one thing because it's very multifaceted and nuanced when we're talking about America right now, because it's happening in so many different, I guess, avenues that it's hard to not it's hard not to see anymore. And I just want people to learn and embrace the freedom of decentralization and not be afraid of not having the regular securities, even if those securities are gone away, you still have freedoms that are, in my opinion, better off than giving up your freedom to someone else based off of a fear that may not even come. But I guess to start, you can start anywhere. You can start from where people are getting their information from. We can start with politics, because I guess that's where this thought now is really stemming from, is that I posted earlier today. I think it was today or yesterday, one of the two, but it's my last Instagram post. And it was about how a poll came out that majority of Americans don't want Biden or Trump to run for office next year. And I thought that was very telling, because it seems like it's a change of guard and that people are starting to pay attention to that. Both sides are bullshit. We're living in a duopoly, and it's time for a regime change overall, complete scrap of the whole thing. And we're not all the way there yet, but this is a step in that direction, which we need to get to. You can look at how people are ingesting their information. A lot of people are getting their news from Twitter, Instagram, things that are right here on your phone. You know what I mean? It's not the same typical 4-letter or 4 different news channels that we're used to getting our information from. And to me, that's an amazing thing, because it gives us different perspectives. Sometimes it gives us even more details than what the news is going to give us, based off of which way that news outlet is leaning towards politically. And I just want people to realize that decentralization and getting away from the norms that we are used to being, I don't want to use the word oppressed, because I feel like that word is overused, but I'll say a word that centralization has been used to manipulate and control us. And I really want us to realize that freedom is so much more fruitful and beautiful than just being in the norm. Does that make sense at all? I know I'm rambling, but
No, it's okay. Rambles are the best, man. I'm known for my rants, internet famous for them. So it's absolutely fine. No, it does. I think so I'll complement that point with another point for a second. So let's look at banking, right? So when there was this boom in cryptocurrency, when we started looking at the World Bank and we started looking at how we got into a global economy, there was a time where countries were kind of separate on their own. You had simple import and exports, and that's all the business you really did with other countries. And now that we have more of a global, it's no longer we are approaching a global economy. We are living in the midst of a global economy. And so when you start looking at things that are going on with the central bank and things like that, and other large banking institutions, there becomes benefits to them feeding off of our fear. An example of that would be the centralization of information. So, hey, what do you do if you want to retire? For years and years, we've been told to put our money in a 401k, right? And when we put your money in a 401k, some of the bigger companies come up with this great match, right? Well, what they don't tell people is that their 401k, in very simple terms, is also tied to the market. All right. So if the market crashes, so does your 401k. And so you're not really getting the same match that you think. And so Americans we're prepping themselves to say, oh, I'm just going to put 3, 4, or 5% of my check up for 35, 40 years. And then when I retire, if the company matches that, well, I can live off that money for the rest of my life, live smart, maybe work a little part-time job, being a door greeter at Walmart, and I can live out my last days in peace. And what's happened is when we saw the boom of crypto, you saw that centralization and kind of like that blind tribalism to, I would say, the layman financial advice we've been given. You kind of saw that be shattered, right? You
Yeah.
saw this new generation come up, which is more closer to your generation than mine, but you saw this new generation come up and say, no, we are literally going to not only get away from your bad financial advice or your outdated financial advice. Maybe at one point it made sense, but hey, there is a reason why the central bank is called the central bank. There's a reason why you guys want this collective ignorance to exist. So we're going to come in and we're going to start this thing called cryptocurrency, blockchain, things like that. We're going to come in and we're going to shatter the mold. And it's been relatively successful. Obviously, it's had its ebbs and flows, but it's been relatively successful to the point to where it got individuals that were profiting off of the central banking, other billionaires and millionaires, to say, no, I'm jumping on this train too, because if I can take a dude that's only worth $500, and if he got on early, now all of a sudden this joker is worth 10 million. If I'm already worth 4 billion, what happens if I invest mine? Right. And so you start seeing the shattering of the mold. And I think that's a great example of decentralization of our finances. And then when we get back to what you brought up in the way of politics,
Can I add to something to that real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Even before the cryptocurrency, right? Like you mentioned, my generation, the trend in previous generations was to get a good job, stay with that job for years and years and years and years, right? Mm-hmm. My generation is more so worried about obtaining a skill and scaling up until we can get the highest amount of money and then figuring out what to do with most of that money. Because we've seriously realized what you've just broken down is that the American dream we've been sold ain't really there no more. And the real way to retire now is to be able to have a different source of income that's going to be essentially doing it by itself. So cryptocurrency was probably the best way for that to start happening. And we're seeing how that's even trying to get controlled now by the government, trying to sanction it and put all the new laws on it and everything. But yeah, I really want people to realize that this is an era where you can take your freedoms back and use technology to help. Technology is not a bad thing. We just have to use it correctly. But my bad, I just wanted to add that.
No, you're absolutely fine, man. That's why we came here for the discussion. I myself have, and I don't pretend to be a financial expert by any means, any stretch of the imagination. But I think what happens when you combine the point you just brought with the one that I made before is, you were told once, that you're going to stay with the same organization for 35, 45, 55 years, whatever it may be. As a matter of fact, you were almost given like a pat on the back by society if you stay with the same company for X amount of time. And once again, that was also a way to keep the slaves, right? And when I say slaves, it's a not only just financial slavery, but it's also slavery to your own internal growth, all right, your own professional growth, right? If you can't excel to executive leadership level because you were just, a machinist on a line, but you want to use your brain and you want to grow and you want to seek these opportunities. Well, we've created this bubble to where you believe that if you jump ship, you're actually frowned upon, right? You are a bad mark in society. You can't do that. And then you couple that with horrible financial advice, right? At one point in time, telling our grandparents to make sure you keep all your money stuffed in a mattress, and then telling us that you need to take all your money to a bank. Give your money to a bank, let the bank go invest your money, then have the nerve to charge you interest for investing your money, giving you back just what you set in the bank minus whatever fees or anything you're paying them like that, or putting you into some kind of bad account that's accruing you 0.001% for every $100 you have that makes you no real value. And then to your point, in recent history, we've had this break of that mindset, which also broke with the investment platforms. Like, hey, nope, we're going to do this crypto thing. We're going to do this blockchain thing. And grandma, don't leave your money under a mattress. Hey, you stop giving the bank your money, for the bank can use your money to become richer and then have the nerve to charge you for using your money to become richer. Go ahead, invest in this, make your money real time that you can monitor, that you can track until, to your point, government comes in and now they want a piece of that pie as well. And then to the political realm of things. this centralization of the two-party political system
Yeah.
is obviously a tremendous problem, and we've seen things be thrown at it that maybe put a dent in it. We've seen the Independent Party, we've seen the Libertarian Party, Tea Party, I know, being a subset of those. We've seen these different things happen over time, but yet the two powers, realistically, are still the two powers. I guess my biggest question to you would be this: from your, and I'll ask you to definitely input your generational standpoint, because you're talking to people in your bracket, a lot, and you're having some pretty good, intellectual conversations. How do we break the breakable Americans away from the monopoly of the two-party system and decentralize their investment in their political value?
And when you ask that, you mean we're talking about the general everyday person.
Yeah, I'm talking about the person that's the school teacher or the person that is the bus driver. How do we get them more abreast of what's really going on around them instead of all the mean girl political ads we see?
If you're an ambassador and an advocate or an activist for freedom, you have to have conversations that are going to be off script. You cannot sit around and pump the same surface level talking points that you hear constantly on the news and that they are hearing as essentially retorts to something that they believe in. So what you can do is just have a real life conversation and have them talk it out to the point where they understand that this ain't working. The structures that we have been living under are not working anymore. And honestly, most of them are going to agree with you. And then that's when you can offer a different option. And that's the best way to do it. You really don't necessarily have to demonize a broken system. You can just show people for what it already is and how it's not working for anybody. There's no reason that technology is advancing. People are getting smarter, yet we're seeing a rise in depression, mental illness, and suicide. You know what I mean? Something there isn't right. And I believe it comes from centralizing all of this and trying to hold people into a form or hold people and make them conform to one type of thing. Humans have never been that. And yeah, I think it's time for us to embrace that.
So when you say if you're an ambassador for freedom, so if you're an individual, and it doesn't mean you have to be like a social media icon, right? Even if you're a local ambassador for freedom, like if you could give somebody a direct tip to educating and breaking away. Well, first, let me ask you this. Hold on. Let's back that all the way up. What do you say to the person that truly does believe they're an advocate for freedom, even if it's just at their church, right? But what do you say to them if they themselves are actually trapped in this political centralization? How do they free themselves first? So if I'm a staunch Republican or a staunch Democrat, and I'm only used to yelling at the other side, before I can help anybody else, I have to break it myself. So what advice does Devin give me to say, hey, this is how you break yourself away from that cycle?
Get a list and write down all of the issues that you have with the country and tell me what your party has done to address all of those directly. Not an incentive, not if they tried this and it didn't work. What have they done that has effectively worked? And if you can't come up with a list that is viable or credible, then you have the answers right in front of you. Like, people honestly just have to live in reality. Like, accept it for what it is, and don't be afraid of oppositional information or facts, especially if it's objective.
Yeah, I think that's good. That will obviously take some critical thinking skills, some separation anxiety, some emotional intelligence, and all those different things that we'll have to play into that. But here is something else that I think complements this conversation. So I have this book here that is a pretty good read. It's a short read too. It's called The Master System. The Master Key System. So this is a pretty decent read. There are a couple of things in here that I pulled out from this conversation when you had it earlier. I thought about it. So in the book, Charles writes, all growth is from within. So we're talking about being centralized. We're talking about being stuck in one way of thinking. He says, all growth is from within. This is evident in all nature. Every plant, every animal, every human is a living testimony to this great law. And the error of the ages is in looking for strength or power from without. So when you talk about the era of ages is looking for strength or power, um, excuse me, from without, that means you aren't looking for it internally. That means you are sourcing it, right?
Right.
And
I
so
100% agree.
when you are sourcing it out, you are then reliant, and let's just face facts, you become lazy upon someone else taking care of it, right? So I think with the political centralization, for example, it's a lot easier for me to say, I'm going to pick a side and I'm going to say my side is always right. They're going to put out tons of content for me to share to prove my uneducated point, right? And then I just go along to get along because I am outsourcing that internal strength that I refuse to identify and cultivate. Because then to
Yep.
grow it is another effort, right? It's another piece of work. And so people don't want to. They don't want to pursue down that path. They'll rather just pass the buck and have someone else do the hard work for them. It's the same thing when you think about the monopoly or the centralization on force, right? Through various government agencies, right? So when you talk about that, look at the amount of individuals that are literally fearful in not only picking up firearms, but even taking self-defense courses to be responsible for their own protection. They have outsourced their protection, which creates a monopoly, which centralizes things, right? And so
Exactly.
we have all these different mental things going on in a human being. And when the government or another entity says, we are going to take care of that for you, then I think people somehow feel like relieved that they don't have to be responsible for that. And then since they don't have to be responsible for that, they somehow think their life is better, although they aren't paying attention to the mold growing in the corner.
Yeah, it materializes.
Mm.
100%. It goes from your subconscious to your conscious to materializing in your real life. And yeah, if you're not confident and self-confident, like there's a reason why we aren't as, like you said, pro bleeding blue for the police is because I'm very confident in defending my own self. Like, yeah, I understand the necessity for police, but at the end of the day, I understand that I have a responsibility to defend myself. And understanding that responsibility, I took it upon myself to obtain the skills to be able to do that. If people would do that throughout their lives, they wouldn't be so stuck on, like you said, being reliant on somebody else to feed them whatever it is, whether it's the information, whether it's protection, it it's whether it's food. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Mhm.
this is something that is affecting life and society in America everywhere. And I think you summed it up very, very well. That it all stems from insecurities from within first.
Yeah, I think when people sit and have evaluation with themselves, they realize their faults. You know what you're insecure about. I think we all have them to a degree, right? You realize what you're insecure about, and if there is a quick fix, then why work? You just go after the quick fix, right? We do it with diets, we do it with finances. I mean, the reason why people are able to keep putting out these get rich in 3 day commercials or whatever they are, infomercials, and they keep making millions of dollars off these pyramid schemes is because somebody is sitting back saying, I don't want to learn money. This dude said I can just do this, give him $100 and I'll be a millionaire in a year. I'll just do that, right?
Right.
Because they're fearful of actually doing the work. And it's amazing to me with the amount of information we have now. Everybody's walking around with a supercomputer in their pocket, and with the amount of information we have, people are too lazy to do their work. And I think Americans, in particular, so you look at a couple of decentralized countries around the globe. Switzerland being a decentralized country, Turkey also being another one, Israel to a degree. And when you start looking at those countries, you can pick good and bad from them. But America, in my opinion, was like the toddler or infant that she is was decentralized in the beginning,
Yeah.
right? Because when she fought back against Britain, it was like, yo, we don't like you collecting our taxes, not doing nothing for us, but having the nerve to tell us what to do, and we have to do things a certain way. So when the colonies were formed and then we turned into a country and things like that, it was every man for themselves. You got to figure life out, right? And I think in a certain point of that, the American spirit of rebellion, the American spirit of fight, the American spirit of figure it out, the American spirit of holding everyone accountable from the local banker to the grocery store clerk to the politician, holding everyone accountable somehow through that brainwashing mechanism. And I guess the advancement of technology, and although human beings are smarter, I do agree with that. I think that they're their intelligence has become a hindrance to their overall growth because they take it for granted. And so now we don't hold things accountable. We're looking for the easy, quick fix because we think we're so smart that we can spot it in 30 seconds. And we lost their rebellious attitude, right? Think about it. The last time, when was the last time Americans stood up and protested the recession?
Collectively, we haven't.
Collectively.
And we won't.
Yeah. But look at France. They did.
We've allowed divide and conquer to work, and it's working right now. And you can look at that throughout the world and how many uprisings you've seen in every other country, from Paris to Taiwan to India. Like, literally, there's been an uprising everywhere around the world but America. We're the only country that is not unified and seeing that, hey, Republicans, y'all just stormed the Capitol. Democrats, y'all just was in the streets for a whole summer burning shit. Maybe there's a problem with who is causing this issue. Maybe it's not the person on the other side. Y'all are both angry at the same people. Why keep fighting each other instead of looking at who's causing the issue, which is the centralized government?
Yeah. I got nothing. I think that the
the point that you made about the quick fixes, right?
Yeah.
What normally happens when you try to quick fix something? The integrity of whatever it is normally diminishes, right?
Correct.
I feel like that's exactly what we're seeing with America. We've quick fixed with laws and different pieces of legislation, and now it's this culture of censorship and nobody can be offended, that we're losing the integrity of what freedom in America is. And it's sad. Like, it's really, really sad. Like, I honestly had to sit and defend Kyle Rittenhouse the other day. I don't like him, but we're at the point in America where people don't want to do the research enough to understand that of an objective fact is going to remain that regardless of your feelings about it. And that's almost what freedom is really about, is being able to accept that and keep it pushing. Like, not everything's going to be your way. You cannot make everybody subscribe to your flavor of freedom.
Well, why not? Because if I were red or blue and you don't agree with me, then you are anti-American, right?
All right. Well, if Republicans are gonna keep wearing all that red, then let the Pyrus come in and gangbang with you, and maybe y'all actually get something. Like, sure, you're in a club with colors. You're doing the exact same counterproductive shit they're doing in the streets. Like, it's so funny to me how people don't see the parallels between gangbanging and politics. There's a term of hood politics for a reason. You know what I'm saying? And we just had this discussion earlier today, but like, they literally parallel. Nobody follows the rules. There's no integrity, and it's all a sham. You can say that for politics, you can say that for gangbanging, and they both have the same color scheme.
I don't think that's by accident either.
At all. At all.
Do not think that is by accident. I think when we look at when you look at the and good words, by the way, and when you look at the political structure and how we've all been warped into it, this is a reason why I don't think you've seen Americans stand in the street collectively, all together, millions and millions at a time, and challenge the recession or challenge housing markets, or challenge anything. I don't think that you see that collectively by the millions because of this. When they politically got us centralized, right? You only got one or two options, really, right? When they got us there and then brainwashed us and made it seem like that these people are our friends and our saviors and things like that, and we forget that Americans at one point in time would tar and feather their politics. Like, we forget that, right? So it's pick a side and get along. But when you look at the lost opportunity to unify, and that is because the two sides want to see you at odds. So let's take the two things that you brought up for an example. One of them being the BLM riots, and then the other one being the insurrection at the Capitol. Look at how both sides have played that, right? And look at how information is being used to keep us from decentralizing the government, for we can all come together and hold everyone accountable and fix things. But you can't do that if people can't stand in the street and talk. So when we have Black Lives Matter, you have some truth that comes to the organization, not the sentiment, but the organization being a fraud. And it is, right? The organization itself is. And it's funny to me that people came out stating things like Michael Bloomberg and George Soros had all this influence, and they're the ones really running it and donating the money. And I've done a breakdown of the timeline of things, and there's no coincidence. And surely those two were heavily influenced the BLM situation, the organization, not the sentiment. They can give a damn about people, but certainly the organization. Well, when you have, and I'm going to blame this on this particular thing, and it did come more so from the conservative side than anywhere else. When you have the conservative side yelling, look at these black people just making excuses. Look at these black people that just that don't want to love the police. Oh, as a matter of fact, you know what we're going to do? We're going to come up to a counter protest to your protest. So now we're going to start saying all lives matter. And then we're also going to say back the blue. And then I look at the hypocrisy in that. So let me get this right. The organization Black Lives Matter is that's funded by white guys, has white Americans yelling at black people over an organization they don't even own or run. So we just getting trapped in the middle and attacked for no reason. Well, you know what happens? We attack back. And so now it's a conversation because you don't want to listen to the sentiment. I cannot help that a billionaire came in and caused influence. I have no control over that. What I do have control over is telling you that the same Antifa that you are blaming for causing destruction, I can tell you that I saw so many people that don't live in my area. I saw so many out-of-state tags. I saw so many people speaking different, with different accents. Like, you don't live here and you're not from here, but you're causing destruction. You're looting, you're burning down. Not saying people from here aren't doing it as well, but you guys are definitely adding fuel to the fire. America comes out and says, well, yeah, Antifa, scum. Well, cool, guys. I'm here to tell you, if that's how you feel, there are some people I think that you identify as Antifa that are causing these problems, and you keep blaming us while you're ignoring the video content that is coming out of people that live in the neighborhoods, threatening and forcing individuals that don't live in the neighborhoods out of them. You also selectively ignore when a group of black men surrounded a not a SWAT officer, but a riot officer in Louisville, Kentucky, after the Breonna Taylor situation, when he got separated from his squad. And those group of black men put his back against the wall, formed a half moon around him, and made sure that no one attacked him. But you ignore all that by constantly saying, look at all these black criminals and thugs, and look at these people, right? We all know what that's code for, right? And then we have January 6th. And so you get January 6th, and guess what? Over the last 3 or 4 summers, the black folks have already been primed they're ready to disagree with you, flat out. And then you have the insurrection happen. What we have the conservative side saying it wasn't an insurrection. They were all invited in. Now, 2 things can be true. Sure, if I'm faced with a couple of thousand people that are a little bit mad and they want to go through a door, I'll make enough damn money to fight you out. You know what, sir? Would you like some water? Bagels? Sure, go ahead. Right? I'm not about to get hurt when I got 2,000 people looking at me tomorrow. I'm going that way. You're damn right you are. Here you go. Go ahead. Right? And at the same time, you have cops being crushed indoors. We can see this guy on video yelling and screaming for his life. Right? We can hear them calling the black officer a nigger. We can hear this. Right? We can hear all these things and we can see all these things. And so now the black side is like, oh yeah, been attacking us for 3-4 summers. Giving you all the energy, all the leftist talking points, because now it's payback, mofo, right? Giving you all the talking points. And then the right's like, well, no. This is deplorable. And we need to fix this. And we need to have these conversations. And it wasn't an insurrection. Well, just like Black Lives Matter, the protesters, the real ones, were saying we weren't looting and burning down our cities. You only paid attention to when destruction was going on. But now you want me to pay attention to the point you're trying to make? No. Oh, an unarmed woman was shot. Babbitt was shot. She didn't need to be shot. That cop is a criminal. Oh, so now all of a sudden it's a problem when unarmed people get shot, right? Oh, now it's a problem with the conditions of the jails that the January 6 people are sitting in, right? Without trial, without fair bond. But when we say for decades, this has been a situation to stop being criminals, you lazy thugs, right?
Right.
Both being contained and trapped by the same government. Both being educated about the other from the same government, both being told what to think about the other side from the same government. And then once they spin you up, and it's like those little toys you used to wind up, just spin them up and put them on the table and let them run wild, right? Because they'll do the work themselves. So that's why we can't get people unified marching against the economy, because we can't even become unified for the nature of the individual, your brethren, your neighbor, that fellow human being that is standing next to you, because you've since you've ran into this central pool of thought, pulled out your favorite talking points out of this pool, and you ran off with them for you can be the favorite in your echo chamber, right? And so that's why I don't think that we'll ever see people unified marching in the street for things like the economy that's affecting everybody across the board, because you can't even get the everyday common American to listen to a social issue that they can have an immediate impact on, because you're pulling from the same pool, the same central pool of disgust and talking points.
Yep.
Well, I don't think that we'll ever get anywhere.
And that's why I said earlier, one of my main things I like to do when I'm talking about anything that will eventually get back to politics is I'm going to stay completely freestyle. You are not going to hear me utter or ramble off any of the same talking points you've heard from Tucker Carlson, Fox News, or anything like that. And if you do offer that up, I'll break that down as to why I didn't even use that example. Like, I don't use Chicago as an example of why gun control doesn't work anymore. You know what I use? I use Atlanta. You know why? Because Atlanta and Kennesaw are 10 minutes from each other. Mm-hmm. They essentially have the same exact gun laws. One of them is riddled with with shootings all the time. One of them is the safest city in the country. Why? Because the cultures are different. Poverty is breeding the violence. It's not about the gun control, and it's not about, well, it is about the gun control because it's the same. And we're seeing what the root of the actual issue is. It's poverty. It's not the fact that everybody is running around with guns. You know what I mean? And that's just one of those. That's just an example of how to stay off script when you're talking about an issue that seems to be popular. I'll stay away from the other one. not on your channel. I'll do that on my channel. But economics is a great one. Shoot. And now with the in the gun world, the 3D printers, those are my favorite people in the world right now. They are not worried about gun laws at all because they've already figured out that what their solution is going to be. We're going to do what we want to fucking do, period. And you're not going to tell them no. And I love that. Like, hey, I'm going to be free no matter what. Try to stop me.
Yeah, I think that, and you actually said this to me about a week ago, or maybe even a couple of days ago. And essentially what you said is they are the champions of the 2A right now. And yeah, I don't disagree.
They're the life insurance. I call them the life insurance of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, 3D printer guys are definitely to be acknowledged. And once again, they took it to where you can't centralize, right? We don't have to go to an FFL and submit government paperwork. There are other ways that we can do this thing. And I think that's what everybody needs to even understand. Hell, even the centralization of education, right? So when you start thinking about how states have to adapt from if you want federal loans, right? Federal support, federal money, you have to do things a federal way, right? And so I don't know what happened to Devin. He dropped. So when you start looking at those type of things, it probably was an accident. Let me see if I can get him back in. Here he is. Adam Stream. That's all right. You're back. When you start looking at the centralization of education, you know, if school district wants information, if they want funding from the federal government, say they're not in the highest tax bracket, right? It could be rural, it could be urban, whatever. They're not in the highest tax bracket. They want this money from the federal government. Federal government has mandates, so does the state have mandates. And normally the states want that support, so they'll go along with whatever the federal government kind of says to a degree.
Right.
And now you're giving these across the board minimum test scores, No Child Left Behind Act and things like that. You're giving these minimum test scores that have to be achieved. And then parents, because we once again are now, I think, kind of sort of maybe thinking about breaking away, but we've been so taught you have to work, 40 to 60 hours a week to be a productive American. Busy. Well, you don't have time to tutor your kids or spend time with them or follow with their homework. So you give all that, the importance of their education and their development to a large degree, even their social development, to the school. You're there for 8 to 9 hours. They'll figure it out. Once again, I'm lazy. I'm not invested. I pay somebody else through my taxes to do it. You do it. You figure it out, right? While the government is coming up with what your kids need to know. How does the government benefit? You can't tell me that Americans are born any smarter or dumber than anybody else. But how is it that does our government benefit in the long run for more intelligent and a more free thinking and critical thinking society, or a society that meets their minimum educational standards that then remains reliant upon them? Because when we want a skill set, we can import that skill set. If I want smart engineers, I mean, I'll get 0.2% of the population and get them into engineering programs. But guess what? I'll create or craft a really good program to draw people from around the world, make them Americans, right? And then they'll come in and they'll do that for us. So I need to have people realize that all these things you need to break away from. So I don't have a problem with people homeschooling their kids. I think there is a social consequence to it, just because they're not interacting with other kids as much, right? But
See, I counter that because
go ahead.
I feel like in today's era, one, even if you send your kids to school, they're going to be socially fucked up regardless. If you aren't instilling like a anchor of confidence that they can go to school with and be back or fall back on in the midst of the war that is middle school and high school, they're going to be messed up regardless. But I feel, and also there's so many different like after school programs and ways for kids to still be social outside of just being in school that I think it's a little bit better off for parents to homeschool up into a certain age and then maybe send them to school. But I don't think that old stigma and the fact that people are doing a lot more like pack homeschooling now, where like 5 parents will pick up a different subject, and then the 5 kids will collectively go to the different parents' house that day and do that subject. So they're still getting socialized. It's a smaller group, but it's essentially the same thing. But I don't think all homeschool kids are as weird anymore, especially the athletes. We're seeing a big benefit in athletes that are getting homeschooled. LaMelo Ball just did it. Before him, who was it? Bryce Harper. He was homeschooled. Graduated, went to JUCO, and went to the MLB early. Like, I like that you brought up the decentralization of education, because a lot of the stuff that's going on in schools is useless. Like, I know for a fact I've learned more about history and economics outside of school than I ever learned in school, ever. And a lot of that is just from me, I guess, maturing and wanting to seek out that information, but at the same time, having way more outlets to get that information than what school was giving me. And a lot of that is because, like you said, it's all based off of standardized, centralized testing. You have to know this, so you don't have time to teach me about this. And that's just giving them the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think when I'm to go back to a second to the social thing, I don't necessarily think people will be awkward, but I think there is something to say for, and this might seem a little silly, but it's still part of life. I think there is something to say for the cool experience, and it's not about weighing one against the other, but the experience of having that crush on that girl and seeing her every day at school, right? The experience of going to your locker and talking to your friends at the locker and then running a class. It's just those little bitty small things, the homecoming dance, the those small and social interactions that we get. Now, I'm not saying that it's worth having a crush on a girl and then lose out on a better education. I'm not saying that. It's just some of the things that will come along with it. So I think that there's a balance that parents need to consider, but it should be an option. It should not be off the table as a consideration, because we have to get to the point where we are decentralizing these things. And education, and I myself was a victim of this particular thing, education even for adults, right? I think I was probably the last generation. I think yours has done a lot better. That we were taught, get a degree, and you get a degree, you go get a job, and that's how you live the American dream, right? And that's what it was. People with degrees were supposed to be looked at as, not better, but more desirable employees and things like that. Never did they really talk about entrepreneurship. They only talked about how you can be a better worker, right, with a degree. And then once you start breaking that down and looking at, education is even centralized outside of grade school level, because what the businesses in America are saying is this: hey, here's how we can generate some funds and maybe get smarter people involved. I'm going to say, in order to get this job, you need to have an undergrad degree, right? whatever that position is. It could be a customer service representative job with a fancy ass title, but I'm going to say you need to have an undergrad degree to get this job. And then guess what? That is going to funnel people that want to work for 90% of the companies in the country. That's going to funnel them to what? Educational institutions. The educational institutions then have programs set forth where if you graduate, we can get you, a silver pass into these companies that are also benefiting the fact that you have to go to these schools. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, you are trapped into this loop. And what happens? The government gets involved between the college and the business and says, great, tell you what, we'll give you a secured loan that they're going to pay us back. And we're going to keep them in debt for the entirety of their work life. And so guess what? While they're paying us back and still trapped in this 401k Ponzi, whatever thing that we got going on, they're not going to have a lot of money. Oh, on top of that, we're going to add in the influence that you should put 10% of your money up in savings because we want to give you an amount that you should be given to the bank, right? 10% of your money up in savings. We're going to teach you to continue to use your debit card. We're not going to educate you on credit whatsoever. We're not going to do that. Matter of fact, we're going to take economic classes out of high school altogether, right? Because we just don't need you knowing that. So this is what you need to do. You need to take this public education we gave you. You need to go to these educational institutions that the businesses have an alignment with. We're going to tax the hell out of you in student loans to go to these schools, right? But they're going to make money. And then when you come out, you're going to spend all of your life paying the banks, paying us back. And then we're going to say, thank you. And then when you die off, we're going to have the nerve to pass the debt on to your family. And then it's going to snowball into an either a bigger debt system. When most businesses now, even when you look at all the work from home situation that happened after the C-19 thing, when you look at that, there are businesses that have lowered a lot of those requirements. Well, you don't have to have that anymore because what we've seen happen is people go out with a high school education, if that, and become multimillionaires or still can generate a manageable wage, $65,000, $70,000 a year with a trade. They don't have to go to school, right? They can live off and create services and products for the people that did go to school, like myself, or got in a debt up here, because the only thing we were told is to pursue the American dream. They never told us about the American consequence.
Or the cost of the American dream.
That too.
Yeah. And I think that's where it steadily kept rising because college tuition kept going up and up and up and up over the years. So at some point that probably made sense until those numbers just didn't line up. Like I remember when I was applying to go to college, I was going to go to an accelerated program. It was going to be 2.5 years. And they told me it was essentially $100,000. I was like, so I'm about to pay you $100,000 for 2 years. I was like, am I going to be able to make that money back in another 2 years to give it back to you? And they were like, probably not. I was like, then that doesn't make sense to me. And I was like, I would prefer to find a different way to make money with experience and in the work field than to sit in school and acquire that much debt. Like I just didn't feel comfortable owing somebody $100,000 without something like in my hands for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's a lot of money.
Right. And I can say that with my degrees, have they garnered me some income in a fair wage? Sure. Right. I have a graduate level degree, so I'm able to say, hey, I got a master's. This is the price. Right. But has it made me back what it cost? No. I'll probably break even in the end of it because really the knowledge is here. The only thing college really proves is that you can learn and obtain, right? And then you can discuss. It's more of that. It doesn't necessarily show or guarantee a certain level of intelligence. I know a whole bunch of educated, degreed up dummies.
Right.
I know a lot of them.
Agreed. Agreed. I tell people, especially younger people now, if you know exactly what you want to do and college is in that path, go for it. But figure out exactly what you want to do before you go into that step. And if it doesn't necessarily require college, because we're getting to that era where college isn't necessarily a necessity to obtain a good job anymore, try to do it without it until you need it. And then by the time you do need that next level of education, you may have acquired enough experience to where that education you're getting is a scholarship now. and you're a necessity to a company or an organization like that. Um, but yeah, just blindly going to college, you're just seeing more and more people not use their degrees for what they're going to school for.
Yeah. And you know what? Nobody really even cares. Nobody cares that they don't. Matter of fact, it's a running joke now. Nobody cares that you're not actually working in your degree field or you're
Right.
not applying your degree. They just, oh, I got a liberal arts degree and I'm, working in graphic design, or whatever the case may be. Now, I am one of the I'm a minority in the sense of my education actually was applied to my degree field,
Right.
or a subsect of it, right? And it does help me in entrepreneurship because I understand how to look at contracts and evaluate them. And I've been a part of a lot of large organizations and things like that. I've also, at one point in time was a part of a law enforcement agency, so understanding how spending worked there and things of that nature. So, it's interesting. So now it can be applied, but um, I don't like the fact that many Americans won't break away in more droves from these handicaps that we've been given. We even have, in a large way, we even have, I don't know, man, kind of like a society that applauds itself for being ignorant. Right. So, and what I mean by that is, how many times will you see people say, it's self deprivation in a way of saying, well, I'm not all that smart. Yes, you are. Stop saying that. I hate when people say that now, right? Because if you walk in a room and say, no, I do have this, and no, I actually do have this information, you being strong enough to say that I've researched, I've studied, I've been critiqued, and I've come up with a way that I can state about whatever subject matter, you are now told that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, hey man, the cool kids say, I don't know nothing. The cool kids don't research. The cool kids just read headlines. The cool kids just utter talking points. The cool kids use sarcasm instead of actually trying to have an intelligent conversation with anybody. That's what the cool kids do. We've actually, at one time, made it to where you got to be educated, and now we make fun of people for feeling like they are educated. You walk into a room and it's like, hey man, I'm not saying I know everything. Well, you know what? On this subject matter, I do. What you got? Let's
Right.
roll. You know what I mean? Like we've made it, and it goes to different communities in different ways. We were talking about this earlier. Hell, in the black community, when you have a decent command of the English language, other black people, not white people, not Indian people, not Asian people, not Jewish people, not Hinduism, nothing, Judaism, Buddhism, none of those people say this, but other black people. Other black people will look at you when you have a decent command of the English language and say something along these lines. Why are you talking like a white boy?
Yep.
And you have to, first of all, sir, first of all, who said that white people have a monopoly on controlling how they speak? And if you're equating that with intelligence, why are you stating that it's a bad thing to be intelligent? Well, because we weren't told to be intelligent. It
Right.
was okay to be stupid. It was okay to be ignorant. And then I thought that was just in our community until, and this is when I was a teenager, until I started looking outside of it. Nope. Everybody else the same damn way. They just got different ways of saying it. Where it's okay for you to be ignorant and stupid. So how easy is it to control people that celebrate ignorance?
Man, it's kind of sad because it's really cherry picking because even our culture, right? Like that'll happen, but you have never heard somebody go up to somebody from the Nation of Islam and tell them because they have a proper dialect that they sound like a white person.
No, I haven't.
But
Right.
they speak very proper. Our boy Riza Islam speaks with great intelligence, and it's like, why can't we give this respect to everybody? Why do we have to pick and choose who we allow to be our intellectuals based off of our own biases? Like, it has to stop. And that's when, like, I remember Killer Mike and Maj talked about it one time when Killer Mike was just like, yeah, man, like the black community just isn't ready for it. Like they're not ready to take that next step of success and to get away from this constant victimhood and always wanting to like stay under that glass ceiling of success.
Yeah,
And it's
keep talking.
sad.
I'm just trying to see something. Ah, there we go. I'm checking out the focus of the camera. Don't worry about me. Keep going.
No, he's plugging one of his items.
Oh,
You can
I'm doing
tell
that
people
too.
to sell it.
This one ain't for sale, man.
Or buy
The
it.
bigger tumblers are. I just want to see how clear it look. I couldn't put a gun up here, so I had to use something else.
But
I'm
yeah,
listening.
man.
I'm just the scissors. Yeah, they're focused. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I'll probably get shut down for that. But yeah, I think you're. I don't not think. I know you're absolutely correct about that. And I think it is sad. I think it is sad that we've not only do we do that on a community level amongst Black people, that we that's permeated to where it's a thing across the nation now in different ways amongst all people, to where intelligence is not supposed to be celebrated. Intelligence is supposed to be frowned upon. I mean, you see it hell. You see it a lot of times, even in movies that depict suburban high schools, right? The smart kid is getting bullied and kicked down the steps, and the dumb jock is the one that everybody wants to be. Once again, just intelligence is not celebrated, right? We don't look at the girl with the high IQ in school and say that's who I actually want to build a family with. Well, we're not doing that because building a family is no longer the cool thing to do either. You're not supposed to, have the nuclear family or mom, dad, 2 kids, half a dog, 3/4 of a cat, and all that stuff. You are supposed to, I don't know, sleep with cars. I don't know what people do now, but you're supposed to do all the other things that you want to do. But building family isn't one. But however, when for the people that want to build a traditional family, let's call it that, when you're looking at that, well, why aren't we taught as a culture to look at the girl who could be, attractive to you? I'm not saying you should look at somebody and throw up in your mouth, but how come you're not looking at her and more attracted to her intellect, right, than you are her hip to ass ratio? Well, we don't want you making smart families. Something that a lot of people can absorb from the slavery system in America is they chose who they allowed to breed. Sometimes making family members breed with each other, sons and mothers, because they wanted to create a strong individual. They didn't want to create a smart one,
Right.
right? So when you fast forward that into modern popular culture, we don't want you looking at the girl who cares about education, or the guy who cares about education and is stable and has morals and is grounded and whatever keeps them grounded. We don't need you doing that, because if you get with this person and procreate, then you're going to start creating smart people, and you're going to start creating people that think, and people that challenge the system, and people that actually use their minds. No, no, no. We need you twerking. We need you shaking. We need you making kids all over the place, for government can get in your business and tax you for child support. We got to put Uncle Sam back in there. We don't
Yeah.
need you making strong families. We need you making irrational decisions. And you know what? In case
And
you
good
think that we,
workers.
oh yeah, and you make great workers. And that's the thing. And so do your kids.
Yep.
So do your kids. So I think that a lot of people, thank you very much for that plug down there, G Webs. Oh, as a matter of fact, because Dev got on me about this earlier too. I wasn't able to put it on sale though, because I wasn't thinking fast enough. I had to get here. But you can absolutely go over to nootherchoice.com, as has been typed in the chat there. This one says, don't mandate me to madness. All right. The one I got on is actually not mine, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. But this one says, don't mandate me to madness. We also have the don't make me act uncivil about my civil rights, and Harriet would have smacked the sugar honey iced tea out of you. That is over there as well, along with some other ones. You will find a lot of great merchandise over at nootherchoice.com. We have all kind of things coming out. 32-ounce tumblers. We also have the wallets coming out. We have a lot of things for you. But Deb, we've been going right at an hour now, 58 minutes. I think we did pretty good. So we touched on a lot of different parts of decentralization, but I need you to tell people the first step that they need to take to approach decentralizing something in their life. What's the first step that an individual needs to take?
Confront your insecurities and figure out how those insecurities are manifesting themselves throughout your life. That would be the first step. Because once you can do that, then you can start living life with more confidence and seeing things without having defense mechanisms or any type of psychological blockage to gaining clarity of something objectively.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to add to that and say this because I think that was a good first step. Um, it's going to say be the change that you want to see, and I know that's an old cliche, but you need to be the change that you want to see.
Yeah,
Uh, if you're tired of whatever being centralized, change it. All right. One thing that I know that I've tried to do and been mildly successful at is to get Americans out of a centralized way of thinking.
right.
Um, Thinking about a lot of different social constructs and things of that nature. But as much as people want to argue with me about it, one of the reasons why I allow them to argue, well, I let them argue with amongst themselves, and I allow them to vent, and I very rarely delete comments off my page and things like that, is because the truth indeed does hurt, and it will stir up a lot of emotions. But once you get to sit and you get to marinate on those thoughts, and you get to understand that somebody is saying things not only for the betterment of the immediate conversation, but the betterment of your mindset, thus leading to the betterment of this country. You'll start taking things a little less personal, and you'll start interacting
Exactly.
differently, right? And you'll start being able to sit and listen to your fellow man and actually come up with conclusions. The other thing I will add to this: anybody that's out there and you're going to be challenging yourself, which means you're going to probably have to go out and have discussions with other people. Um, Stop taking conversations so personally. It's not a personal thing. No matter what we're talking about, finances, race, politics, whatever we're discussing, these things aren't necessarily personal, even if the person has an emotion connected to what they're saying. Most of the time, if somebody thought that you were the banking system that stole their grandpa's retirement plan and made their mom and dad and them homeless, they probably wouldn't be having a very polite conversation with you. Matter of fact,
Right.
I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be verbal at all, right? So nobody's blaming you for these things. So you have to also be willing to go out and listen to your fellow American and say that I understand that we're coming from different places with different reasons, different backgrounds, and different viewpoints. But if I'm trying to get us all off of the government's titty, then we're going to start to have a real conversation that leads to results that we can leverage in our favor. But until we do that, um, we're gonna have a really 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 bad problem. Sorry, my light just died over there. We're gonna
No,
have a really bad. Uh-huh.
you're still good.
What you say?
You're still good.
Oh, you
You
freezing up.
yeah.
All right. Oh, there I am. I'm spinning. You spinning. I'm spinning. Everybody's spinning. Are you back?
I can see you.
Okay. I'm not sure why Dev is spinning there. Um, but that
Oh, something happened.
just spinning. Okay. Now he's gone. All right. So that was the end of the live anyway. I hope you enjoyed it. These are going to be some of the kind of different conversations. Hold on, he's coming back. All right, we're just doing the sign off right now. Anyway, I was just about to do. I don't know what happened. It just was
Me
spinning in
neither.
and out. But these are the kind of conversations that I look forward to having on this channel and some live chats. Obviously, these are conversations we're going to get into in Stogies and Straps. So I hope you guys enjoy. We're still going to be right spinning too much truth. The algorithm don't like that. That is very factual. We are going to start making these kind of conversations okay, because we have to have them within our sphere of freedom. We have to have them. So I always say we're more than guns. We're a community. We have to be able to have these discussions. But Dev, man, tell people where they can find support and tell them what you're up to.
Crunch Work Chronicles on Instagram. From there, in the bio, you can go to the Kids to Kings page. That is probably the most important page to me right now. You and I are currently working with King Randall, and we're about to start working with his boys on the firearm safety and mental health. I think that is the most important thing that we're working on right now. Other than that, go donate to Greenwood and the Solutionary Center and Walk the Talk America. Those are three most important projects going on in the Second Amendment community right now. Hands down.
Thank you very much, good sir. If you would like to donate to the Greenwood Initiative, and if you don't know what the Greenwood Initiative is, I'll give you the very, very short version of it. The Greenwood Initiative is our answer to education, the investment in human beings, and supporting the Second Amendment at the same time. So basically, it is a plot of land that is 55 minutes south of Atlanta, Georgia. We have acquired the land, so the land is actually acquired. Now we have to develop the land, but we're going to basically have human enrichment resource center on there where we're doing reading and writing classes, literacy classes, resume writing skills, interview techniques, de-escalation training, therapy, anything we can think of or bring a program to. We have financial literacy classes. We partnered with a couple of representatives from banks that are going to come in and start teaching people just how to even read money, right? And to see what it is. Along with family firearm safety training. And then on another side of the property, we're going to be doing professional firearms training and obviously supporting the Second Amendment in that way, along with civics classes and other various things. That is all nonprofit. The Greenwood Project could absolutely use your support and your help. And you can donate to the Greenwood Project right now by simply going to GoFundMe. GoFundMe.com. Should have put that in there already, /aiming for the.
You know, it's kind of funny. The conversation was about decentralization, and we definitely centralized a lot of solutions in one spot. But that's a good thing. It's a one-stop shop for all solutions. So come get it.
Yep, absolutely. And then obviously Walk the Talk America is another great organization you can help out with the things they're doing with mental health. And then obviously Mr. Maj Toure with the Solutionary Center is always something to get involved with. Maj does a lot of great work around the country. That being said, the other thing, if you are looking as far as what we are up to here at No Other Choice, which Devin is part of our team here at No Other Choice, but he also has his own entities. But another thing that we're going to be working on with No Other Choice is that we have the fourth annual No Other Choice Train and Learn event that is coming up Memorial Day weekend of 2023. If you are in the firearms industry, the freedom community, I'm sorry, not the firearm industry, but the freedom community, writer, blogger, instructor, advocate, you work for a manufacturer, something. If you're involved in an industry, then Train and Learn is for you. You can go to nootherchoice.com, go to the calendar, just simply go over to Memorial Day weekend, end of May next year, and you can sign up for Train and Learn. 3 days of professional development where we get out and we give you business workshops, about 4 or 5 of them, 4 or 5 business workshops. We're also going to have a little fun. We're going to feed you 3 times. You're going to get firearms training classes. You're going to get things that do not involve the firearms. It could be medical. It could be hand to hand. You're going to get a networking event. You're going to get collaborations. You're going to get sponsor features. You're going to get fed 3 times. You're going to get a fireworks show. You're going to be treated like royalty. You get all that over 3 days for $350. Reserve your spot now. nootherchoice.com/train and learn. It is an event you want to be at. You're not going to get any sort of that value. The closest thing to the country that absolutely tried to mimic us is right around $3,500, and it doesn't even come close to the value we add. We are 10% of that, and we're going to give you all the value. That's what happens when you're original and you're not copying off people.
So to add to that, you can you might have already said it, but you can name all of that stuff, but like until you experience Train and Learn, like you're not gonna understand what you're missing out on. Like that bonfire is different every year. It just sets it off, and it's not something you can really verbalize or articulate, but you just have to be there for it.
Agreed. Definitely agree. I won't argue that.
Go check out the Train and Learn page on Instagram, and you can see all the footage and all the highlights from the previous years. Some you definitely need to be a part of if you're in the freedom industry and community, for sure.
Absolutely. We are a 4th sold out for that event, so I would say, go get your tickets, and you can also finance your $350 from the website over 4 months interest free. So there are things to help you out there to make things affordable. So outside of the Train and Learn and the Greenwood Project, be on the lookout, man. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, and share all the videos that even already exist. Go through the 139 videos that are already on this channel and see what you can interact with. The studio pretty much is now done. We should be releasing videos from the studio within the next couple weeks. Pre-recorded videos, do have a lot of them on deck. So we're gonna start bringing you some conversations like this. We're going to touch on some social issues. We're going to touch on some political issues, and we are absolutely going to touch a lot of guns. And we're going to have a lot of conversations about different training techniques. I think a lot of people forget that I am a firearms instructor, but I'm going to remind you exactly why I am where I am. So trust me, you want to stay tuned to the channel and come have a good time, right? It's going to be something a little bit different. I'm not going to allow myself to be pigeonholed by only talking about one thing. I think my value is far exceeds those limitations. So please, absolutely engage, follow, like, share. Still follow the Real NOC on Instagram as well. That's going to be also very important. We don't want to abandon Instagram until they decide to kick us off for whatever reason. So make sure you follow everything, interact with everything, and go to nootherchoice.com. Pick you out something. Get something. You can also subscribe until we get our watch hours up here and we can do super chats here. You can also subscribe on the Instagram channel. A subscription on the Instagram channel is going to come with a lot of perks that only the subscribers will be able to see. A lot of savings, discounts, behind the scene footage, and things like that. So please go interact, engage, share the content. And other than that, it's been good being with you guys for the last hour, 10 minutes, and 40 seconds. And we will see you soon. So I wish everybody the best. Check you guys out later. Peace out.